Well, I was reading this week as I
Hmm.
normally do, and oh my God, I'm gonna restart that. So this week I was reading and I came upon a word that made me laugh. And the reason that it made me laugh is because I feel like this happens more like if you read when you were younger. And so you hadn't heard all the words, but maybe this happens as an adult too. But it was one of those words where when I was younger, I'd only ever read the word, I'd never heard it said out loud. And so I pronounced it wrong in my head. And so when I was a kid, I thought the word Awry was Aubrey. I didn't know it was awry.
All right.
And like I remember the first time that I realized that like awry, the word that I heard was the word that I was mispronouncing in my head when I read.
Hmm.
And then a couple of paragraphs later, I saw another one that I used to do that with, and that's misled. So misled, I used to read as misled. Someone misled me.
Misled.
And I remember like the moment realizing like, oh, that word is misled. So my icebreaker for you this week is, did you have any words like that ever?
Um, I don't I don't I don't think I had words.
Mm-hmm.
I think that there have been names or last
Yeah.
names or
Yeah.
like names of characters. Like for instance,
Mhm.
um sometimes I'll watch like an adaptation of a movie or a show and be like,
Oh yeah.
that's how you say their name.
Yeah.
Um, which one of them is for one of the books I'm going to be talking about today, so I'll just like pop
Oh,
that
that's so
in.
perfect.
But I guess there's probably some like there's definitely some words that I'm like even as an adult I will never spell properly.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I'm sure there were some. I'm sure there are some that I mispronounce to this day that I will refuse to
That's
pronounce
true.
correctly. Um, Mine, I think the only thing with me is I have certain words in books that make me cringe.
Oh yeah, definitely that.
Certain books have words that just me ugh, like I just use a different word, you know.
Yes. Yeah.
Um, but I don't know if there's any. It's like probably one of those things where like 11:30 tonight I'll be like, "Oh, this word actually I
Yes.
always like mispronounce."
It's
But
something I don't think about a lot. But then when I was reading it this week, I remembered seeing a TikTok of someone talking about this strange experience, like when you hear a word out loud and realize you've been like reading it wrong. So it doesn't like stick in my head. It just popped up for me this week.
I will say not that I like read it a lot, either word as a child, but when I was younger, I thought productive and seductive were the same.
Those would be funny ones to get mixed up.
So like in like movies, if somebody was like, "Oh, that's productive," like I thought it was like a weird way of them saying it's like sexy.
That's funny.
Um, I don't know why. I think it's just because like there are not a lot of words that are like active,
Oh yeah,
but
totally.
yeah, I was probably smarter as a child.
I know you're just smarter than me.
I was probably smarter as a child. It's now the words as an adult that I'm like,
Yeah,
um, but yeah, that's a tough one.
yeah.
There is one word that I still actually I just thought of it. I've been trying to think of it this whole time. Definitely.
Oh yeah.
I d definitely or
Define.
definitely is how I used to
Yeah.
say it because I don't think I learned how to spell the word definitely until I was like 25. because I just
Yeah.
thought it was one of the trickiest words to spell. So if I
Yeah.
said it like deaf uh nightly, like
Yeah.
Nitely,
Yep.
then so like now sometimes if I'm reading a book and it says like definitely, I like still in my
Mhm.
mind will chuckle and be like definitely. So
That's
I think
funny.
definitely was like my tricky word, just because I
Yeah.
always had a hard time spelling it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's one of those. Now we have autocorrect, so.
Now I just can't read the words moist or baby.
Ooh. Moist doesn't like bug me the way it does people who it bugs, but I don't love it. And I'm
God.
definitely not a baby. I'm not a baby girly.
I think like
Mm-mm.
baby girl is like one thing, but like calling somebody
Oh,
like
yes. No, no,
baby,
I agree.
I don't know. I hate
Yeah.
it. I fucking hate baby.
Yeah, sometimes like
I'd rather swallow glass than be called baby.
I don't know if I could go that far, but I don't want to be called baby. Well, you had a really good idea
Oh my God.
for a subject.
I had an idea that I think is so fun.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm trying to like think of like examples without picking one of my examples, but like we'll go with
Gone
Akatar.
girl.
Gone Girl's one of my picks.
Okay, sorry, go ahead.
We'll go with Akatar. But we always say
And I thought
like
you said Avatar. I was like,
um
Avatar? Okay, I'm with you now.
so
Akatar.
we'll go with like Sarah J. Maas, or
Yes.
we've always like said in the back of like previous episodes, like we're going to talk about like the best books that we've read with like missing persons or best
Mm-hmm.
fantasy. And like we always like kind of like crack a joke like we're not going to be talking about Gone Girl because like everyone's read it, or we're not going to be
Yes.
talking about like A Court of Thorns and Roses if everyone's like read that for fantasy.
Yeah.
But I just thought like sometimes those books are the best reading experiences
Mm-hmm.
when it's like a book that's like really hyped up by people
Yep.
and it works for you. You know, like,
Mm-hmm.
because I mean, obviously, we've definitely had conversations where sometimes a book is hyped up and like didn't work for us or like was
Yeah.
overhyped. But I wanted to like talk to you about like some of your favorite reading experiences when a book was like really popular or hyped up or all over and everyone was talking about, and like you read it and had a
Yeah.
really good reading experience with it.
Yes.
So that
Such a
was my
fun
idea for the
one.
week. Yeah, I
I was
hope
like
so.
scrolling everything I've ever read just to like see which ones applied. And there
It
really
took
are
me
so
10
many.
seconds to pick my five
It took
because
me
I was
longer.
like,
And
oh my God.
at first I was like, so like I've read more books in general in the last like 2.5 years, basically. Like once I kind
Mhm.
of got onto Bookstagram, not just like a reader. Or what you not that that's a bad thing, you know what I'm saying.
Right.
Um, but I've read so many more. So it was funny because at first when I was scrolling through them, I was like, not there weren't tons that are hyped because just like I read more in general. And
Right.
so at one point I was like, am I an obnoxious, like hipstery sounding reader that's like, I don't know. I don't know if I
I don't
have
read
five that
anything
have
that's
been
hyped up
hyped. And
hyped
then I
up by
kept
the public.
scrolling and I was like, oh no, here they are. Here we go.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
they do. But there was
Mine are
more to scroll
definitely,
through.
yeah, mine are definitely like it'll be a good balance because mine are
Yeah.
definitely like your basic bitch answers, but
Yeah.
like
Oh yeah. I have lots like that too.
so do you want to kick it off? Do you want me to kick it off?
Sure. Yeah. The first one that came to mind for me
Mhm.
immediately was Verity by Colleen Hoover.
Fuck
Be-
yeah.
because when I remember it because I found out about that before I had a Bookstagram, and it was like just everyone was talking about it. And I remember one night being like, huh,
Mhm.
I'll try it. And then literally reading it from like 5 p.m. until like 1 in the morning. And as you've all heard, I'm sure at some point, I can't normally stay up past my bedtime to read. And this book
Yeah.
was one of them. So I was like, this one definitely lives up to its hype. Um, so Lowen Ashley is a struggling writer on the brink of financial ruin when she accepts the job offer of a lifetime. Jeremy Crawford, husband of best-selling author Verity Crawford, has hired Lowen to complete the remaining books in a successful series his injured wife is unable to finish. Lowen arrives at the Crawford home ready to sort through years of Verity's notes and outlines, hoping to find enough material to get her started. What Lowen doesn't expect to uncover in the chaotic office is an unfinished autobiography Verity never intended for anyone to read. Page after page of bone-chilling admissions, including Verity's recollection of what really happened the day her daughter died. Lowen decides to keep the manuscript hidden from Jeremy, knowing its contents would devastate the already grieving father. But as Lowen's feelings for Jeremy begin to intensify, she recognizes all the ways she could benefit if he were to read his wife's words. After all, no matter how devoted Jeremy is to his injured wife, a truth this horrifying would make it impossible for him to continue to love her. And it has a wild ending that is
Fuck
so
yeah, it
much fun
does.
to talk about.
And I will say, as somebody who like, I still consider myself one, but I'm not like in that era, like as hard as I was, but like somebody
Yeah.
who was in their Colleen Hoover era, like all of
Mm-hmm.
her books, even the ones that are not thrillers like Verity, have that kind of pacing.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're
Yeah.
impossible to put down. You want to speed through them. Like you just get so wrapped up in them. Like I don't care what like any haters say. Like I will fucking ride or die for Colleen Hoover. Like she is
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing.
She
Um,
seems so sweet too.
I also met my soulmate because of Colleen Hoover.
Really?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Oh
Yep.
my gosh.
So I'll just tell everybody his name for when it's official and like the wedding goes, like invites go out. But I was scrolling through TikTok and there's a video on TikTok from like a football account. Um, San Francisco 49er Mooney Ward, Mooney Ward. Somebody asked him like what his top five favorite books were, and two of them were Colleen Hoover books. It was Verity and Ugly Love, which are my two favorite by Colleen Hoover.
Nice.
And so he lists off like his top five favorite books. And then he's like, actually, I was thinking about this the other day. And he pulls a bag out from like his cubby in like the locker room. And he
Mm-hmm.
bought two big gift sets of Colleen Hoover books. And he was like, I can't wait to read these. So like there's just like tall, handsome football player out there named Mooney Ward, who is like going to have a bookshelf shared with me of Colleen Hoover books.
Oh my gosh. That's
Right
amazing.
here. This little
What a win.
right this way. These are all my
Yeah.
Colleen Hoover books.
All of them.
I love them. I love her.
I
I
know.
love Colleen Hoover. So
Yeah. Are you
that's
excited about the
amazing.
movie? Kind of.
Um, I am and I'm I am and I'm not
Yeah.
because some of like the like I just picture Lily as being like super like sexy and like some of her outfits I'm like what?
Insane. To the
Insane.
point that some people think it's like fake and that like she's not actually gonna be wearing those outfits.
I mean I love that book. I love that
Mm-hmm.
book with all my heart. I probably will want to get back into Colleen Hoover very soon, just having this
Mm-hmm.
conversation. But my only my only stipulation is I feel like Blake Lively is a very beautiful woman.
Yeah.
But like Lily does have red hair in the book,
Mm-hmm.
and that's like a big thing. But I
Mm-hmm.
feel like if they would have let Blake Lively just have her blonde hair,
Mm.
it wouldn't have been like there's nothing in the book that's like the plot twist is that she's not really a redhead, like
Right?
or
Yeah.
anything like that. So I feel like if they pick somebody like a gorgeous redhead to
Yeah.
play Lily, that would have been fine. But if they picked Blake Lively, they could have just let her be blonde and like the character still would have been like she would still do the character
Yeah.
justice without the ugly red
Right.
wig.
It
So
is quite a wig.
I just there's a man that I have a crush on because my favorite
Mhm.
Colleen Hoover book is Ugly Love.
Yep.
And there's an actor model stud named Nick Bateman.
Uh-huh.
And he was supposed to play Miles in the adaptation, and then it just like never happened.
Oh man.
So it's sad, but I also am just like, one day it's gonna happen for us.
Mm-hmm. It
So
will.
I've met two soulmates because of Colleen Hoover.
I
So that's
know. It sounds like that.
I love I love her. I love her. If you ever want to step out of the thriller genre, she does have some like
Mhm.
darker romances, but
Yeah.
all of her books are just like wild and there's always like twists and the pacing's really good. So
Yeah.
even if you're like, well, it's not a thriller, it reads like one.
Nice.
So
I'm chronically planted in the thriller genre. I just can't help it.
one day you're just gonna get on Marco Polo and I'm just gonna read Ugly Love to You, like the whole entire book. It's gonna be like a 6 hour Marco Polo. Um, that's amazing. Well,
Yeah.
I'm gonna kick it off with my first one that I kind of hinted at in the beginning. My first one is Gone Girl.
Nice.
For sure. Like I know like everyone's like Gone Girl, Gone Girl, Gone Girl. I just this if it was not for Gone Girl, I would not have gone back into reading as much as I did
Same.
because I have certain OCD traits with reading and things related to
Mm-hmm.
books, even if I'm like, well, I am reading a lot now, but even when I wasn't reading, like I have to read the book before I watch the movie.
Oh yeah.
If an author comes out with their third book, it's very hard for me to pick up their third book and not read their first two.
Yeah.
Because people were talking about when Gone Girl came out, it was this huge book, it was everywhere. People were talking about the ending, the twist, all of these things. And so when I went to get it, I saw that Gillian Flynn had two other books. And I was
Mm-hmm.
like, I hope that I don't read Gone Girl and get to the end and not think that the twist is wild and crazy because what if it's related to one of her previous books and that's why everyone thinks it's
Mm.
nuts. So I read Sharp Objects and Dark Places first and I was like, "Oh my
Mm-hmm.
God. I love
Yeah.
this author. Like I love the way she writes. I love how gritty her books are." And then when I got to Gone Girl, I was like, that's probably the best thing I've ever read. And I remember
Yeah.
similar to you with Verity, I remember like this was when I was in my like wild party boy stage. So
Oh,
like
nice.
me coming home instead of like going out with my friends or being social,
Yeah.
coming home to like read this book and like staying up too late reading in bed and like not wanting to
Mm-hmm.
put it down and the whole like just one more chapter, like that
Yes.
is 100% Gone Girl for me. And that is the book
Yeah.
that I was like, please let me find more things like this because I'm obsessed.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I love the
I
fucking
loved
movie.
Sharp Objects too. I loved that one.
So Sharp Objects is a TV show that was
Yes.
critically acclaimed. Everybody loves it. It's
Mm-hmm.
amazing. Gone Girl is a movie. Everyone's like, they did a
Mm-hmm.
fantastic job with that. They made a movie with Charlize Theron
Yep.
for Dark Places, and it was not horrible, but it wasn't great.
Yep.
So now HBO is making that a mini series.
I saw that. I am excited about that.
Yeah, yeah.
That's gonna be good.
And I like felt kind of bad because I shared the news on Instagram and
Uh-huh.
like people were like, "Oh my God, don't they know it's a movie?" And I wanted to be like I don't know how to like nicely be like, "Yeah, but the movie like kind of sucks." So
Yeah.
that's why they're doing it so they can have
It was
like
okay.
a good
Yeah.
adaptation.
Mm-hmm.
Because that ending to that book is one of my favorites because it's so
Yeah,
bleak.
it's so bleak. Yeah.
I was like, "Fuck yeah, this is amazing."
We know how much you loved
Oh my
it.
God, I know. I know. But yeah, I will always have a special place in my heart for Gone
Yeah.
Girl.
Yeah.
Oh, I guess if I'm not going to be like unless you were living under a rock, but Gone
Yes.
Girl is basically about a man named Nick who wakes up on his fifth wedding anniversary and his wife is missing. And
Mm-hmm.
typical police, they're just like the husband did it. So
Yep.
there's diary entries between Amy leading up to her disappearance of being
Mm-hmm.
like, I'm afraid of Nick. Um, he's abusive, he's this, like these things in her diary that like Nick is like, this is none of this is true. So it's kind of
Mm-hmm.
like a he said, she said plot of like
Yep.
domestic turbulence. Um,
Yes.
and like basically as you continue to go on. his plot gets twistier and so does hers.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yes,
it's just
they do.
amazing.
It is. Well, my next one is also a book that was made into a movie. So clearly the ones with hype have adaptations. And it is Where the Crawdads Sing, which was another one I read when I
Oh
wasn't
yeah.
like totally into reading as well, but it was so hyped up. Um, so for years, rumors of the Marsh Girl haunted Barkley Cove, a quiet fishing village. Kaya Clark is barefoot and wild, unfit for polite society. So in late 1969, when the popular Chase Andrews is found dead, locals immediately suspect her. But Kaya is not what they say. A born naturalist with just one day of school, she takes life's lessons from the land, learning the real ways of the world from the dishonest signals of fireflies. But while she has the skills to live in solitude forever, the time comes when she yearns to be touched and loved. Drawn to two young men from town who are each intrigued by her wild beauty, Kaya opens herself to a new and startling world until the unthinkable happens. I feel like that's actually the synopsis keeps talking about how great it is. So that's all you need to know. But it's such a good book. I'm getting tripped up on the book and the movie. And alternating timelines, even, which I always love that.
Yeah.
And such a great ending. So I loved it. And it's that and because midnight is the darkest hour. Ashley's team even compared it to Where the Crawdads Sing. Those
Mhm.
are the two only books I've read where like being in nature like doesn't bug me. And I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, I can get on board with it. This character just really loves nature because like normally not something I'm looking for in a book, but
Yeah.
like similar to Midnight, they both like draw really interesting comparisons to like humans and nature. So
Hmm.
it's so good.
So good. That was actually the one I broke my rule for. I never read the book, but I watched the movie.
Yes, I was thinking about that when you mentioned it, and I was like,
And
well,
I
this is fun.
remember I remember having that conversation where I was like, I'm gonna wait for it to be streaming, and you were like, it's
Yeah.
today. Like
Yes.
so I was like, oh. But yeah, the movie was fantastic. I would
Hmm.
definitely read the book. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, that's such a good pick. And yeah, it
Hmm.
is really funny too, because like that would be my selling point of you
Hmm.
recommending a book to me is like if you were like it
Yeah.
takes place in nature
Yeah,
and I
right.
loved it. Like I'd be
Yeah,
like,
right.
"Oh, okay." Um
Yeah.
so that's obviously a
It's
very good choice.
my one of two nature books.
Mine mine I just looked, all of mine have been adapted. I don't
I
know what
have
that
one
says about
more
me.
that has.
I don't know what that says about me. I'll probably just get the more obvious one out of the way then.
Hmm.
Um, The Girl on the Train.
Yes.
The Girl on the
Yes.
Train. The Girl on the
That
Train was
one
one
was
of,
everywhere.
oh my God, it was everywhere. And the thing is like
Hmm.
people were hyping it up before it even came out,
Yeah.
which was like abnormal for me because I wasn't used to like people who get advanced review copies or
Yeah.
stuff like that. And it was one of those moments too where like when I had heard about the book, it's like it was like saying like soon to be a major motion picture. And I was like,
Yeah.
oh my God, it's not even out yet and they're already going to turn it into a movie. Like that has to mean
Hmm.
something.
Hmm.
And it was like one of the first books I read on a Kindle because I couldn't wait for it to be delivered. I had to read it like when
Nice.
it came out. Um, and I loved the movie.
Yeah.
I loved the movie.
Hmm.
Um, but Girl on the Train by Paula Hawkins is about a woman named Rachel who takes the train every morning and she starts to feel like she knows the people in the houses as like the train goes by because she like obviously passes them every day.
Hmm.
Um so she imagines this life of this couple that she named Jason and Jess. Um she imagines like what their life is like, that they live like the perfect life, whatever. And then she sees something that shocks her, and it's only a minute, but it's enough for her to question everything she thought she knew about this couple, and it kind of sends her into a spiral basically. Um when she has a chance to become part of their lives.
Yeah,
And I mean, obviously, I'm sure a lot of people
it
that are
gets
listening
messy.
read it, but it's just
Mm-hmm.
a great book. But if you haven't read it, or if you don't really, if you just like love listening to Kate and I, but you haven't read a lot of thrillers, it's a fantastic thriller.
Yes, it is. Yeah,
And
it's
it
one
was
of
one of
the
the
like
first books I read
starter
with like,
thrillers.
yeah, like multiple POV.
Oh yeah, that's a
Yeah.
good point.
And I was like, ooh, I
I remember
actually really
discovering
like
how
this.
much I loved that
Yeah.
multiple point POV.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So it's just
Well,
fantastic.
my next one, this one was not adapted, but wouldn't it be an adaptation? Um, The Silent Patient by
Oh,
Alex Michaelides. I don't I've said his name before. I don't know why I'm struggling. I couldn't not include it because it's another one. It still gets hyped. I still see it on like Book Talk and like people. Did I see one?
no. I just
No.
think that there's a lot of books that were hyped on Instagram before Book Talk. And
Uh-huh.
like Verity and Silent Patient, like were hyped
Yeah.
on Book Talk years after they were hyped on Bookstagram.
Yes. Oh yeah, I agree. I completely agree.
So I just think that if you would listen to Kate and I, we're way
Mm-hmm.
ahead of Book Talk.
I do agree with that. I
Hmm.
said at least with thrillers and maybe
Yeah.
male romance now as
Oh, fuck
well.
yeah, Mail Romance. Hell yeah.
But this one's a thriller. It is not a male romance. About Alicia Berenson, whose life is seemingly perfect. A famous painter married to an in-demand fashion photographer. She lives in a grand house with big windows overlooking a park in one of London's most desirable areas. One evening, her husband Gabriel returns home late from a fashion shoot, and Alicia shoots him 5 times in the face, then never speaks another word. Alicia's refusal to talk or give any kind of explanation turns a domestic tragedy into something far grander, a mystery that captures the public imagination and casts Alicia into notoriety. The price of her art skyrockets, and she, the silent patient, is hidden away from the tabloids and spotlight at the Grove, a secure forensic unit in North London. Theo Faber is a criminal psychotherapist who has waited a long time for the opportunity to work with Alicia. His determination to get her to talk and unravel the mystery of why she shot her husband takes him down a twisting path into his own motivations, a search for the truth that threatens to consume him. It's just iconic.
Oh my God, it's such a
It's a
fucking good book.
very, very impressive twist at the end.
I remember when that book came out, there was like a picture of Rooney Mara walking,
Oh,
that the
yeah.
paparazzi took a picture of her and she was carrying that book. And like
Oh,
everyone's like, oh
nice.
my God, she must be like playing in the movie, or she's gonna be in the movie
Oh,
if they make it. And I was like, literally, this is one of those situations where like everyone is reading The Silent Patient. So like even if you see like a
yeah.
celebrity with it, like
Yep.
it's probably just because like everybody's reading it and they're obsessed. But
Hmm.
I do hope that they adapt that because it
Yeah,
would be such a good movie.
I know. It really would be.
Hmm.
Oh,
Oh,
please do it,
please
somebody.
do it. Please do it. Um, my next one is Twilight.
Ooh, that's a good one.
I loved Twilight. Like I
Yeah.
ate those books up. And I was again in my party boy stage when I
Oh,
was like
nice.
reading them. Like I was like, "Oh my God, like I worked at the mall at the time, so like my
Hmm.
friends that worked at the mall, like when we would see each other, like we would be like talking about like
Yeah.
Twilight. There was just like a big group of us that were like all reading it, and there was a
Yep.
bookstore in the mall. So um it was just such a good reading experience. And it was one of those
Yes.
times where like excuse me. It was one of those times where like you're going to read something outside of your comfort zone that really worked for me.
Yep.
Like I was not going to read a teeny bopper book about vampires, but like here I
Right.
was, like, it's
Yeah.
about this girl named Bella who like moves to Washington.
Yeah. Seattle-ish, right?
Yeah, Seattle
Yeah.
area. And she like meets this boy and like he's a vampire and there's just like a lot of crazy shit that happens, but it's like
So much.
about like first love and vampires, and it's not like he's not like a vampire that like sleeps in a coffin.
Nope.
Like there were like no stereotypes in it with like vampires or
Yeah.
cliches. So it was just like really good and it was really interesting to me, and I just could
Hmm.
not stop thinking about them when I was reading them, and I couldn't
I
wait
bet.
for like the next one to come out. It was just such an exciting time to be like reading those books as they came out.
Yeah.
And that's one of my names that I had a hard time pronouncing was Esme.
Ooh, yeah. There
Because
were all kinds of names in that one.
I thought it was Esme.
Yeah, I thought so too.
And then like the movie came out, they were like, Esme. And I was like, Esme? Who the fuck is that?
That's amazing.
So yeah,
Yeah.
I
I
like,
had a friend sneak me a copy of Twilight
oh my
because
God. I would have
I
been that
know
friend. I would have stuck you the
you
box set.
totally would have.
Fuck yeah, I
Yeah.
would have. Oh my
It was
God.
like anything magical my parents said was satanic, so I would sneak read it at school.
It's like
I'm
so
such a
wild.
rebel.
I know. I know. It's so wild how different we were because
Oh
like
yeah.
you were like sneaking a book up against your parents and that would have pissed them off. And my parents were
Yeah.
probably like, we'll buy him all of these books because he's not out at the bar
Right.
doing God knows what. Like
Yeah.
getting wasted and doing drugs and sleeping with everyone.
Yes.
So like let him read the fucking vampire book.
Right.
um
Did you like vampire shows before then? Or was vampire totally new for you then?
I think my only experience with vampires prior to that
Hmm.
was I've always been a fan of Interview with a Vampire.
Oh yeah.
And I enjoyed Anne Rice's books, but I think that I was reading them too
Hmm.
young where I didn't fully like grasp
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah.
Um, and then the show True Blood.
Yeah. I wonder
So
about that.
like that was like, and they're both very like, I love Anne Rice. I will never say anything bad about her, but
Yeah.
like her books are very much like including the cliches of vampires, like it's like
Mm-hmm.
the folklore and it's like mysterious, but it like takes place in a different time. And there's
Yeah.
like they probably were sleeping in coffins, if I can remember, or
Yeah.
whatever the case may be. But then like when True Blood came out, it was like, hmm. Like
Yeah.
they're a little different.
Yep.
And so with Twilight, I didn't think that it was like as weird as True Blood,
Mm-hmm.
but it wasn't as full of like the myth that we're used to of a vampire with like Anne
Yeah.
Rice.
Yes.
So it was
Yep.
like probably my third, and then like obviously the Vampire Diaries, I started watching that show after, but like
Yeah.
I think that's kind of like one of those things that's like really fun with something that's like a myth or an urban legend or something. It's like
Mm-hmm.
everybody can have their own different take on it.
Yeah.
And that's why like, like nobody's gonna watch like Twilight or Vampire Diaries or something and be like, that's unrealistic. Because like that's the
Right.
whole point.
Yeah, like I don't know if you know what's going on here, but
Like the vampires in Vampire Diaries just like have like veins that come out and their eyes get really red and they look like they're really hungover. And
oh,
like Edward sparkles like My Little Pony. So
he
like
sparkles.
it's just whatever it is it is. It's your jam.
Mm-hmm.
So
It is.
I will always love a vampire story.
I
I
love
wonder if
that
there's like
we've
MM.
unintentionally made like so I'm thinking of Midnight is the Darkest Hour again, had Twilight and Where the Crawdads like references in it. So we're just this is a subtle homage to Ashley Winstead, which is no surprise.
I think that's the thing too, is like even Ashley said like Midnight is the Darkest Hour was very different than her other books. And I think
Yeah.
that's why it worked so well for me because it kind of gave
Mm-hmm.
me Twilight vibes without seeming like it was ripping off Twilight.
Yeah.
And, like the references in it, just, I was like, this is like a trip down memory lane, but also
Yeah.
something new that I can enjoy.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
Well, my
actually.
next one is from a very similar era and had a very similar cult following when it was adapted adapted from book to movie. Adapted. So I had to include The Hunger Games since I got just
Hmm.
totally obsessed with it last year. See, it sounds weird saying that, but it was like 2023.
Yeah.
Um, it's just great. It's another one where like I do think enough people generally know what happens in it, but basically it's about living in a post-apocalyptic world where the capital requests each district to what contribute to tributes, and it's like always children between the age of 12 to 18, and they have to go fight to the death in an arena basically, and it's televised and totally fucked up and terrible. So it actually is really bleak through a lot of the series. But it also like asks a lot of great questions about like war and government and controlling people. So it's like kind of deceptive as a YA because there's actually a lot of like those deeper questions going on throughout a lot of it. And I
Mhm.
just love Katniss. I love Katniss so much. One of my favorite main characters. And I did a TikTok about this. Um, but she doesn't trust anyone. And I saw like when the movie came out, like everyone was talking about like the movies are great, but like imagine like reading these books, like Katniss is so paranoid and unhinged. And the whole time I was reading it, I was like, I don't think she should trust those people either. So so I was like going into it expecting her to be just like crazy. And I was like, she's fighting to the death. Like, of course she shouldn't trust these people. But it's very good. It's a great trilogy. The final one's very heartbreaking, but what are you gonna do in a post-apocalyptic world?
Hmm. True that.
Yeah.
I haven't watched the movies.
That's what I didn't think you had any like
They
experience with it.
they sound excellent. I feel like there's going to
Mhm.
be a time where like I get into this weird era. Not weird.
Yeah.
No, I shouldn't say weird. But I feel like there's
Hmm.
going to like be one of those times where I get into this like era of like stepping as far as I can out of my comfort zone and I'm going to be reading like
Yeah.
A Court of Thorns and Roses and like binge watching Hunger
Right.
Games and like all of the stuff
Fourth
that like
wing.
I'm like curious, yeah, like that I'm like curious about, but I like haven't
Yeah.
like fully dove into yet.
Yep. I
Um,
get that.
but yeah, everybody loves the Hunger Games.
They do.
Ita.
Yeah,
Um,
PETA's best.
God, I want to say maybe I did read. Is like somebody stealing a loaf of bread in the beginning?
Yes. Now you may have just seen a lot of clips because he's like colloquially I can't speak today. Known in the fandom as Bread Boy, because like that is like the key memory about PETA. But yeah, maybe you did read it.
Maybe I did read the first one, or maybe I watched a movie. I don't know. Party Boy.
Yeah, you could have seen fan edits of PETA because they love him the way people love
Is
Edward.
there a little girl named Rue?
Yes.
Okay, then I think I watched the movie or I read the
Nice.
first book. So,
Okay.
um, but my next pick is definitely one that no one's going to be shocked by.
Give it to us.
50 Shades of Grey by E.L. James.
I can't believe I didn't even think of that. I mean,
Yeah. Yep.
I
I was
haven't
living
read it, but I meant like in general.
I was living in Boston and like everybody was talking about them. Like
Everyone. Yeah.
everyone. They were like, these books are so dirty. And there's like,
Uh-huh.
I can't believe like everything that happens in them, but they're also like, people were saying they like, had a lot of twists in them, which I agree
Yeah.
with.
Yes.
Um, but I was like, I got really curious. So I
Mm-hmm.
downloaded the first one on my Kindle and I was like reading it, could not put it down. And I was like, because like for me, like one of my favorite movies is like Basic Instinct, like an erotic
Mm-hmm.
thriller or an erotic like drama, like sign me up. And I was like,
Mm-hmm.
how dirty are we talking here? You know?
Yeah.
So as I was reading it, I was like, wow, this is like so good. And then I like ran to the bookstore by my work as soon
Mm-hmm.
as I like finished it and bought like physical copies. And like I remember like reading them everywhere. Like
Yeah.
I read the trilogy every single place I would go. I brought it to work with me. I read it on the train. I like took one of those small 8-person planes back and forth from home to Boston
Oh
and
wow.
had no problem reading it on that. Like
Wow.
I just brought them everywhere with me.
Yeah.
And I remember being like really, really, really sad at the end of the third book. Not
Oh
because it
man.
had like a sad, bleak
Yeah, just because
ending,
it was over.
just because I was like, what do I do now? Like
Oh,
how do I find anything that's like this, you know?
yeah.
And it's about a young innocent woman named Anna or Anna.
I can't
I don't know.
remember if I
Anna.
heard people pronounce it. We'll go with
Fuck it.
Anna.
Um, she's like innocent, sweet, like young, and she meets this guy named Christian Grey, and he is fucking drop dead beautiful and sexy and mysterious, and she's completely like mesmerized by him, but he is also
Hmm.
like mesmerized by her, but he's part of the kink community. He's in like to like
Hmm.
BDSM. And he's like one of those like I don't date, I just fuck because like I've been hurt in the past kind of guys. And
Yes.
like Anna's like, okay, well, like maybe I can fix him.
Exactly.
And I like if there's anybody I can relate to, it's maybe I can fix him kind of
Oh
girly.
my gosh. I have to tell you, Taylor Swift's track list came out and for this new album, and one of them is
Oh yeah.
called I Can Fix Him, and then in parentheses, no, really, I can. And it made me think of you.
It's probably gonna be like my like the one
Yes.
Taylor Swift song that's on my phone.
Yeah, I know exactly.
Um, but yeah, so there's just like a lot of twists and turns in the book and the whole
Hmm.
series, and I just like love angst because of it. Like,
Hmm.
will they end up together? Like the drama, the tension, the angst, and all of that, and like
Yeah.
it's very much on par with like what I enjoy now in like romance.
Yeah.
Um,
That's cool.
so yeah,
It was a
50
little
Shades.
precursor.
I know it took me like 15
A
years, but
decade.
like I got there.
To get back to you, like, oh, I really did enjoy that.
Like, actually, you know what? If you just take this book and put two dudes in it, I actually kind of be really into this.
That's awesome. Yeah. I maybe I should read it sometime. I don't know.
Oh my
Never
God.
it just didn't
Tyler
hit
better
me
hold
at the
on
right
tight
time.
because those books will give you some ideas.
I'm sure they do.
Hmm. And
Yeah.
every single idea works.
Not speaking from experience or anything.
It's like I read these when I lived in Boston. Boston's like, we'll never forget.
We remember when Gare read them. I hope someone listening is like, yes, yes, this was true.
Hmm. Yep. 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 It was that and the fact that I would never go to this one bar called Mary Ann's because I thought that if I like legit thought that if I walked into it, I would get murdered.
Well,
So
that
it was like
sounds
the best of
terrifying.
both worlds. It was like my
Right.
romance era and my thriller era were like, I'm gonna stay at home and read 50 Shades because if I walk into that bar, I'm gonna end up dead.
Oh my gosh.
Hmm.
Well, I'm glad you didn't walk into that bar.
It probably would have been like my favorite spot. You ever have those moments where you're like, "Ew, I'll never
Yeah.
eat there," and then it's like the best food ever.
Oh yeah, totally.
So who knows? But yeah, I'm still alive to tell that
You're
story.
still alive to tell.
Yeah.
Well, my last one is another one that was adapted. We're big on adaptations, which makes sense with hype ones. But I
Hmm.
couldn't not talk about Big Little Lies by
Oh, good
Liane
one.
Moriarty. Yeah.
Fuck.
It's another one that like a lot of people know a lot about it, especially
Hmm.
since it was a series, but it's mostly about three women, Madeline, Celeste, and Jane, who are like very unique. Like Madeline's like your really bubbly, over involved, like PTA mom. Celeste is like beautiful. I'm seeing if this is a spoiler. And in a difficult marriage. And then Jane is a single mom who just moves into their like really upscale, ritzy, wealthy town. And so as they all get to know each other, some secrets are revealed. And
Hmm.
at the top of the book, someone's been murdered. And kind of like The Affair, if you ever watched The Affair on HBO, you're like, that happened, and now you're kind of like
Yeah.
jumping back in time to see why it happened. So the
Mhm.
suspense is amazing. It was just and it was another one of those books where like everyone was reading it all of a sudden. And then it was a TV show. Oh, that original cover. So like when I'm reading on Goodreads obviously has like the updated like TV cover now, but I remember that cover. Oh, that is so cool. He has
I
a
have a,
signed copy
I
for
have a
people who are
signed
listening.
copy. Oh yeah, I always forget that people don't want to watch me on YouTube sometimes.
Yeah, same, same. I'm like, don't you want to see me?
Yeah, don't you want to see us? Yeah, Big Little Lies, one of my jams. I
Oh,
love that. I'm
so
actually like so
good.
annoyed that I didn't think of that.
Well, I'm glad I did.
I'm glad you did too. Um, and there's going to be a third season of Big Little Lies.
I just saw that last week or
Yeah, so
something.
that's really
I'm
exciting.
excited to see what they do.
Me too. Me too. There's so many freaking twists in that book that I was like, holy shit.
Yes.
Let's be honest. When it came to Apples Never Fall,
Yes.
the reveals in the end of that book were not my favorite.
They're not this. That's for
So when
sure.
it comes to like Big Little Lies, I'm like, oh my God, this is like so amazing. And like, why did
Yes.
I pick up on this? But like, I just will always love Big Little Lies so much.
Oh yeah.
Such a good one.
Such a good title too.
Oh God, it's so good. It's
Hmm.
so freaking good. Um, if you like Big Little Lies, but you want to see these characters as teenagers,
Ooh, nice.
my last one and one of my favorite reading experiences ever was binging the entire Pretty Little Liars series by Sarah Shepard.
Mm-hmm.
Um, this for me started, oh my God, I wonder if you can see your activity on Goodreads. Um,
Wow,
oh,
this is me learning that this was a book series first.
oh my God, it is like a huge book, not like huge, like huge popular. I mean, obviously it's popular, but
Yeah, it is.
no, there's like 16 of them.
Oh my gosh.
There's literally like 16 of these books.
Yep. 16.
Um, I started reading them when there were four.
Wow.
So I saw a trailer for Pretty Little Liars, the pilot episode, like when they were like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, like new show coming on ABC
Yeah.
Family, Pretty Little Liars. And I was like,
Yes.
ooh, like this looks really good.
Mm-hmm.
And so I looked it up and I saw that it was a book. And I was in
Mm-hmm.
Virginia Beach and I took four of the books with me to Virginia Beach and finished them in one vacation.
Oh my gosh, that's
Um,
amazing.
it's just so good. It's so good. It's like four friends, Aria, Emily, Hannah, and Spencer. And they all have like some drama or some stuff going on in their lives. And the thing is that like a year prior to when the book starts, their friend Allie went missing during a sleepover and like has like not been seen since. And
Mhm.
somebody named A keeps like harassing and texting them and knows everything that's going on in their lives and is like blackmailing them.
Yeah.
And it's just so good. I love like a stalker story.
Yep.
And this was just like every chapter ended on a cliffhanger.
That's
And
impressive.
that was one of like the first times I had read that, you know.
Nice.
So like I binged all of those books and I remember like the eighth one I think was supposed to be like the last. And
Okay.
then the show became popular, and then like she was like, I'm gonna write four more. And then like
I
those
don't
sold like
blame her.
hotcakes. And then like she was like, I'm gonna do four more. And
That's a that's awesome.
it's been such a while since she wrote these books that I like
Yeah.
honestly think we could like go back and like
Uh-huh.
see whoever's left as adults, and it would be
Yeah.
really entertaining for a book.
Nice.
But the books were just like so good, so binge worthy. They were like so much
Yeah.
fun, and like I just could not stop reading them. I think I have gift sets of the first eight,
I
like that
bet
I
you
had
do.
bought,
I believe it.
and they're just so fun. There's like a Barbie on the cover of each
It
book
is
with
a
like,
I like this. This is a really smart cover.
yeah, and they're just amazing. Like I distinctively remember like my what exactly what my hotel room looked like in Virginia Beach, like
Yeah.
the sliding glass door with like the water noises and like being like, I can't stop reading these books.
That's so
And
cool.
taking my little Kindle with me everywhere because I was
I
like
just mm-hmm.
binging. And it was
Yeah.
probably like I would say it was like my favorite reading experience.
Wow. That's saying a lot, especially with everything we talked about
Yeah.
today.
Like
Today.
in my entire world. Like
Yeah.
Pretty Little Liars is my favorite reading
That's so cool.
experience.
I'm learning all kinds of stuff today.
Yeah. Yep. I remember where I was when I read all of them.
Yeah. I think I probably do too. I remember with the silent patient, literally like I was trying to read walking down the stairs. Like I could
Yeah.
not stop. Like I was like, I'm going to finish this book, just like burning through the pages.
Yeah. Oh my God, 100%.
Hmm.
Ugh, that's so wild. You know, it's funny too, because I think that I've had three reading experiences since January 1st that I'll never forget.
You're having a really good year.
I mean, I've read 21 books so far this year.
Yeah.
So to have only three isn't like great, but to have three of those experiences,
Yeah.
yeah. Um,
Yeah, you don't always get that.
yeah, yeah. How We Named the Stars,
Hmm.
amazing. Um, The Teacher by Frida McFadden.
Oh yeah, you were just talking about
Fucking
that one.
bomb.com. It's so good. Um, and the new book, Want You Still by C.E. Ricci and Marley
Mm,
Valentine. Like, I was like screaming reading it. Like, I was like,
I
holy
believe
fucking
you.
shit. Like, is this really happening? I was like laughing. Like, I was having those like reactions that you usually like see in a movie or like a TikTok, and you're like, nobody
Yes.
acts like that when they read a book.
Right.
And then like you're like, oh my God,
Like,
it's
I
me.
do.
Yeah, I do now. But yeah,
That's
yeah.
awesome.
I just love a fun reading experience that you'll never forget.